You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and/or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radagast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Beyond the Verse, Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Sulyce, and this is episode 137. On today's episode, we're going to be covering the Star Citizen Live Tech Talk with the CTO, Benoit. Star Citizen Monthly Report, we look back in January 2026, and we see big production progress for the month. We're going to cover February in the Verse, kind of a preview on what we can expect out of Star Citizen, inside the game and outside of the game. We're going to go through the February 2026 subscriber promotions. We're going to announce the giveaway winner. So a lot of you participated and enrolled in the RSI Hermes giveaway. We're going to cover that as well. And of course, we will wrap things up with going through the community, our polls, and our comment section as well. So a pretty fun and engaging episode. Join me for this ride. It's going to be a good one. And there's plenty of information to cover. Welcome in, everybody. It is really good to see y'all. Or I guess hear from y'all. I don't know what to say on the podcast. I've been doing this for 8 years and I still can't transition that nicely. It's nice to have you with me. Let's go with that. It's been pretty busy. I think I announced on last week's episode, I've been tagged. Actually, I volunteered and there's a whole nother reason for it. But anyways, at work, I was tagged for the OP2 doc captain. So I know that's acronyms that we don't necessarily care, but just know that it takes a lot from somebody's bandwidth in order to manage a global initiative that goes in front of a SVP. So a lot of work being done outside of the game, but I'm still really proud of myself. I've actually been able to play a significant amount, relatively, in Star Citizen, and I've been head down in this event, right? This whole clearing the air event. Now, I had this done before this past weekend, and I'm still doing it because it gives me something to do. I don't really care about the numbers, clearly, or obviously, don't really care about any of that, but it gives me something to do. So I'm helping other people. I'm creating parties in kind of the general chat and just kind of leading that initiative to make sure everybody's alliance aid is taken care of. So hopefully yours is going well as well. Hopefully you're not trying to fly a whole sea because that whole process is completely destroyed. I had a horrible story last week, and then one of our officers last night had a horrible story. So try to do something different. If you love yourself and you don't really want to go through the stress and anxiety of managing the whole sea and stopping at ports and it not really registering you, and you're constantly moving so it doesn't auto load I could get into it for a little bit, but we're not going to. So let's start with this week in Star Citizen. I think that's always a really great spot to start. So this week in Star Citizen, happy Monday, everyone. Alpha Force 6 has arrived and left skis in trouble. The deadly Molina mold outbreak caused by faulty Geisen air filters is spreading rapidly, and now neighboring systems are at risk. Through March 17th, clearing the air puts you on the front lines of the crisis. Transport medical supplies, defend relief convoys, or gather critical resources. Your choice, but make it count. New clothing, armor, vehicle paints, and other rewards await those who step up, but more importantly, there are lives to save. The full details are clickable right there. Beyond the relief, I didn't give them permission to use the word beyond. I'm gonna have to write them. Beyond the relief efforts, February is bringing love, luck, and adventure to the verse with Koromor celebrations, the Red Festival, a free fly, and more across the coming weeks. Hearts are full. Prosperity awaits. It's shaping up to be a spectacular month ahead. After an incredible 2025 of packed venues, late nights, and unforgettable conversations, we're bringing the Bar Citizen World Tour back for 2026. We've already confirmed stops around the world, with more locations on the way. Check back on the World Tour page as the route expands and let us know on Spectrum where we should head next. All right, let's take a look at this week. Obviously, I listed off most of what we're going to be talking about already on the segments. That is what happened this week. So February subscriber comm link and newsletter, the January 2026 PU monthly report, the Star Citizen Live blabbing with Benoit. Listen, that's going to be the main purpose of today's podcast. So we're going to go through kind of what I pulled out, what I extrapolated as the most critical pieces of information. Then, of course, later today, the RSI weekly newsletter will be coming out. So get ready and check your mailbox for that. So like I said, the main purpose of today's episode, we will be covering what I have pulled out as the highlights or the top talking points for the Star Citizen Live and the Star Citizen monthly report. So actually not going to be doing a lot of screen sharing. I have my own notes and no one really wants to see that. So I'm going to just be talking at y'all for a couple minutes. But first, I was going to do my giveaway, but I'm going to make you wait. I'm going to wait until towards the end here. So, all right, let's do this. The Star Citizen Live Tech Talk with Benoit. He returns to launch our 2026 season of Star Citizen Live. Tune in as we discuss last year's highlights, this year's priorities, and all about the tech that makes the verse tick. Okay, a lot to talk about. So let me pull up my notes real quick. There are some gold nuggets here. And the way I pulled this out, it's 2 hours, and this is why we're not watching it. Usually I've been sharing like the 7 minute to 16 minutes Inside Star Citizens or whatever they're creating, each month. But this is 2 hours long, and there was no way I was going to, at that point, just watch it on your own. So I'm going to pull out, like I said, maybe the top 10 to 15 items. I've kind of broken it out as like what's the headline. I'm going to summarize each one and honestly why it matters to the community, or why I think these should matter to the community. So let's get started with the first one. Again, I've prioritized this as the top headlines. I'm going to order it by top, and you might disagree. And actually in the comment section, let me know if these were not the main takeaways that you pulled out of it. But number one, server meshing, right? Server meshing is stable, it's scalable, and doing what it's designed to do. Now, the player experience might go in and out of that comment. It might be the cause of a lot of people's headache, but it also is the main solution. And again, where we're at today is because of server meshing. So kind of to generalize, Benoit confirmed that static server meshing has been far more stable than expected over its first year. So key wins include, I jotted this out, server crash recovery. There's no more losing ships or cargo, which, that's what was said, guys. That's my comment section's going to completely blow up on that one. There was crash isolation by region, 600 to 800 people player shards, better server FPS, enabled multi-system gameplay between Stanton, Pyro, and Nyx. Now that list, again, you might have a visceral reaction to something I just said. But if we take a step back and really evaluate the totality of last year, not like these like highlights and lowlights, but if you look at the totality of what happened in 2025, those are not incorrect statements. It has been the most stable in the last year than it's ever been. If you've been part of this project for, I don't know, I've been doing this for 4 years now with Star Citizen. I'm just over 4. I'm actually at 5 now. Yep. I'm at like 5-ish years. Last year was the best. Hands down. The releases, the patch releases, you can argue and you can get into freight elevators and some persistent issues that are happening, by all means. But if you honestly look through a critical eye, where it wasn't a silver bullet, it wasn't like the end all be all, it unlocks everything that is coming next. So the foundation is built, right? This validates that the core tech behind Star Citizen's vision, without this working, the things mentioned in Star Citizen's CitizenCon, like instancing these large scale events, having multiple systems, and ultimately 1.0, it's not possible without server meshing. So I thought that was a very, I think that's the most important thing that came out of this conversation. For the second point, I wrote down ships and gear will no longer disappear between patches. So item recovery and entitlement. Quote, you will stop losing your stuff. Okay, so 4.6 drops, and we already talked in the last episode about inventory being, very wonky. Now, you got your inventory back. For the most part, everybody in my org, at least that had inventory issues, has had it solved since. So I think we can't consider 4.6 whenever we talk about item recovery and having issues on the back end on that sense. But ultimately, CIG is rebuilding like how this ownership works. So entitlements will persist permanently. No more patch wipes of owned ships. Awesome. I mean, define owned. Right. So so if you go to a contested zone and you end up getting one of those rare versions of a ship, is that considered owned, or is it like in-game, out of game? Is it only pledge store? So let's just, I don't know, take everything that I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But no more patch wipes of owned ships. FPS gear will get insurance style recovery. So super interesting news drop there. Loadouts will be snapshots and restored. The long-term goal, one persistent database. Wow, I said that weird. One persistent database with forward migration. Okay, awesome. Item loss is I would say item loss is the number one morale killer in the community. And so last week's episode, when I talked about there being a wipe and people losing things, like that's not something we should talk about lightly. I think there is a dichotomy. I think we should consider both sides of the coin. I think there's a justification for both, whether there's a wipe or not a wipe, like Roger. But the reason why that is so kind of a dramatic topic is because people want their shit. They play the game for hours and hours and for years trying to get these items. And if there's no persistence, what is the purpose of playing? Now, you can argue 1.0, and I made this argument last episode. You can argue that 1.0 is going to wipe anyways. So why get so, caught up in the details? But we don't even know what that means. Like we don't know what a full wipe for 1.0 even means. Now, yes, we can say the basics, resetting commodities, resetting the economy, I think those are pretty obvious. But which gear, if you are in the verse and you organically find the Halloween masks, those aren't necessarily considered owned. They're not in your pledge store once you find them in game, but those are those are rare items. So does that mean that you get to keep those? I don't know. It is the number one morale killer when you put in so much time and effort and it's not there anymore. So I would say that was probably the second highest bullet point that came out. Third one. So transport system rebuild, the death of broken elevators, end quote. Transit is being replaced with a brand new system. All right, so the old transit system wasn't built for meshing, but this new transport will. This new transport system will handle elevators, trams, hangars, ship lifts. And this will happen in Area 18 first. So Area 18 will be the first tech preview when this is rolled out to everywhere. Listen, if you can't leave your habitation, you can't play. I don't know. I feel like that's not this groundbreaking revelation. But if you can't go places. You're not doing shit in Star Citizen. So this fixes one of the game's most visible failures, right? You've heard me and Space Tomato talk about this on several podcasts, and I've talked to other people on my podcast about this as well. When you go and you tell your friends in real life what you play, and they're like, "Oh man, that's awesome. What is Star Citizen?" And you're like, "How's the weather?" Right? We pivot. We're like, nah, let's not talk about this, because we're excited to say, oh, this is what it can do. Very rarely do we go and say, well, this is what it's doing. This is my experience from last night's org night, and I did all this, but then it was lost. Or, I tried to play the game last night, and like last night, I had org members, officers, who were stuck in New Babbage and couldn't get anywhere, or they were stuck transporting from Nix to Stanton because there was jump point issues and things weren't aligning. I mean, we avoid these conversations. Okay, moving on. Dynamic server meshing. So auto scaling the universe. Servers will spin up and down automatically. Okay. We can get into the science or the technology behind dynamic server meshing. It's one of the pillars, one of the core tech pillars. So object container streaming was the first, then persistent entity streaming, and then server meshing. And then we have dynamic server meshing, right? Those are kind of the pillars of tech that really is Star Citizen. Now, several podcast episodes now I've talked about it. There are many great YouTube videos. I'm going to call out Space Tomato again. Has a great YouTube video that illustrates and explains what all these are. But, I think that's another podcast another time. I'm not going to take us on that rabbit hole, but dynamic server meshing. We're currently in server meshing. We just talked about it. Dynamic server meshing. They're testing this quasi dynamic server meshing. Basically, I listed off empty areas spin down, busy areas get more servers, automatic authority transfers, and lower infrastructure costs, right? So first, there's internal tests that need to happen. Obviously, it'll become a tech preview. Then more than likely, it'll go through its typical testing rollout phase. So EPTU, PTU, all waves, and then hopefully launch. Okay, not to get too much into the scientific weeds here, but it removes manual shard management, and it enables truly organic player-driven hotspots. So the more dense of a population, the more focus that the servers and the shards and all the other buzzwords, the DGSs, the dynamic game servers, the more that will change and mold and be dynamic, hence the word, it'll be focused on where there is player activity. So let's just fast forward because I don't want this to be a 2-hour podcast. All right, next, the instancing system, right? This was all last year's CitizenCon. So instancing, we know that Area 18 is getting their layered one. We know that there's going to be the tactical strike groups, right? These are all requiring instancing. So think of it like in MMOs, like World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, right? Dungeons and trials. So like those dungeons and trials are coming to Star Citizen, right? So private mission spaces in Star Citizen are finally becoming real. Okay. Don't really want to get into how I feel about that. I think it's for the better. I do. I think it'll be successful and it'll be good on the community if CIG does it right. Now, right by Sulyce's standards, okay, we can debate what right is, but I think Chris Roberts' vision of open world, dynamic server meshing, everything we just talked about, while also having instancing, I think you can be, what's the word? Like artful, poetic with how this all interacts with each other. So they have a full instance manager, and that full instance manager includes party-based instances, seamless entry and exit. There's obviously no loading screens, a controlled player cap, supports raid style content, right? And the first major use of instancing, here we go. Here's the announcement. The first major use of instancing, the Siege of Orison Redux. So we all miss Siege of Orison. I miss Siege of Orison. You should miss Siege Orison because it was something for us to do in the game outside of contracts. It gave us platforms around the Orison area in Crusader. You would go to a whole different system of platforms, and you would go platform to platform with an org. I would highly advise going with an org, and it's designed for it because we're talking about instancing here. But you being able to go and have your dedicated space for the event, like here to me is the main point. The main point of instancing is how much work is done. And again, this is for me. How much work is done by org leaders and members to get ready for an org night, to get everything situated, to have this massive operation order and this plan of attack. And you make y'all's happy ass way over to Siege of Orison's platforms, and you get there and nothing's happening because an org right before you just went through and cleared everything. And so your 2-hour org night, you spend the first hour just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. For me, it's not about the potential of PvP. It's not about, oh, you might run into another org. I hope that happens. I hope that Soul Provision comes in contact with another org and it's pure chaos. Absolutely. That is Star Citizen. But the last thing I want as an org leader, the last thing I want is for us to arrive at the Siege of Orison platform and just nothing's there. Everything's already dead, right? We're waiting for things to trigger to move the missions forward. I happily welcome the instancing system. Okay, my number one. Now, Sulyce's number one. Not what I think is the number one announcement that came out, but for me, my number one pull out from this was the social systems overhaul, right? Orgs are coming in game now. Like, we're not just living in Discord and we're like calling ourselves an org inside of the game, right? So dedicated team rebuilding social from the ground up, right? So there's a task force that's going in and completely revitalizing. Hopefully they're just gutting it out and starting completely new, but completely overhauling the social systems, right? They said that it's going to deliver a new chat and communications app, a new party finder, a new in-game org system, VoIP overhaul, which we've been hearing for decades now at this point, reporting moderation tools, and their target is 2026. Their quote, not mine. So in 2026, for org leaders and communities, this is huge. After 13 years, orgs finally become first class in game systems. Listen, we should not be having this conversation in 2026. Like the whole, especially in Star Citizen that praises itself, that brags about being this massive MMO. Okay, great. But like, how do y'all actually play in the game? We don't effing know. We don't know how you're going to play in game, but it's there. Dynamic server meshing. Woo. Okay, well, that's awesome. There's 800 people in a server. How do y'all get together? You don't. You don't get together. There is no party finder. You don't go to Siege of Orison and sit there and twiddle your thumbs waiting for a party to form. Heck no. The only way to organically create a party is blowing up general chat, which is like the cesspool of the community, right? So no one spends any time. I log into the game and I immediately hit F11 to turn that shit off. F11 or F12? I think it's F12. I immediately turn it off because I don't want to hear other people's like crap. So again, if I am playing solo and I'm like, you know what? I would kind of like to play with other people. There's no option. There is no option to do that unless you go in the general chat and say, hey, is anybody doing the Alliance aid missions? Because I kind of need, some help. That's it, guys. So I think this is very, very important to literally everything I do, and more than likely everything you do. You're not necessarily playing Star Citizen to twiddle your thumbs by yourself. That's like for Squadron 42, right? That's a solo game. Star Citizen, this is about 13 years a little late. Okay, I'll be fair. Maybe 5 years a little late. Moving on. Inventory rework. This is right around the corner, guys. In fact, this is so right around the corner that they just announced it will be a Monday, like this next Monday in 3 days. It'll be a Monday Evocati tech preview test. So the inventory rework is coming in 4.7, which is in March. So within the next 6 weeks, we will have an entirely new user interface for inventory, right? So new equipment, and they're calling it a paper doll system, but new equipment, faster UI, proximity inventories. So proximity inventory is just very quick. You can be standing in a room, you can access your backpack, but if there's also like a box on the ground, you can easily draw that inventory as well. So you don't have to go to like the box to your inventory to a locker. It's all seamless if you're in the same area, right? So proximity inventories, this main reason, in my opinion, is because it supports crafting. Like you could have crafting with the old inventory system, but it would be absolutely miserable. Absolutely miserable. So a lot of individuals are thinking that 4.7 in March is actually the inventory patch, and then a 4.7.x or maybe even like a 4.8 would be crafting. So they're thinking inventory first and then crafting later, because they're saying that crafting is dependent on a new inventory. Okay. So not to like say Benoit fully committed, but he strongly hinted that inventory is coming in 4.7, with crafting pushing hard for the same window. So again, crafting being 4.7 or 4.7x, that's kind of why I said that. I don't think they'll push crafting to like a 4.8, which would be Q2. So anyways, this modernizes like one of the worst interfaces that the game has, and it does. It unlocks true player manufacturing. So it's huge. It's huge. And it is like user interface wise, my God, that might have worked just to get the ball rolling, to start necessary movement. But like 5 years later, like in 2026, this is a user interface unbecoming of a 2026 game. Okay. Also, we kind of talked about it earlier today, but exploits really being the cause for a wipe, are really fueling the need for a wipe. We talked about it last episode. We talked about it obviously a couple minutes ago, but he did address the economy exploits and anti-duping. There is now a dedicated process for how they are handling the exploits, right? So Benoit admitted, or we'll say CIG admitted, that there's about 7 or 8 active exploit vectors. Excuse me. The past response was ad hoc. They're now using strike teams per exploit to address it. They're studying before patching, adding economic safeguards. Just in short, they can't be transparent without helping exploiters. Right? So they can't say, hey, there's this exploit going on right now and we are addressing it. Because what does that essentially do? That educates the rest of the community of like, well, if they're doing it and they're getting a head start in the game, like, why not me? I think just the perfect example. Now, I don't consider this as an exploit, but you can use the foundation of my story real quick. I used it last episode, but the going to the new the new sites, the new ADS. anyways, the new sites in Nix, being able to go there, go to the terminal. If you crawl on your stomach and you kind of get underneath the terminal, you can see the open door button. You open the door, and then once you go through the door, you basically skipped the entire content of that building, and you have access to this really rare, loot area. So I would have never known that. Now, again, I don't think that's necessarily an exploit. I mean, I guess it is, guys. I guess it is an exploit because that's not the intention. CIG did not intend for players to completely bypass the content of a release like that. So it's discovered, and then they exploit the weakness, or they exploit the window of opportunity. And so the rest of the community kind of just jumps in and follows suit. So I don't necessarily fault like CIG for taking that approach, right? Okay. Like a broken economy undermines progression. It undermines progression in wipes, in my opinion. It shows, I'm going to call it maturity. I don't mean, especially for CIG listeners, like the developers and engineers that are listening to the podcast. I don't mean that as like, hey, you guys are not mature. But when you talk about the tenure of a product, I would say that this shows maturity in live service management. Like when a game is fully live, like there is auditing mechanisms, there are processes that we do in the gaming industry. And this shows that it's like a 13-year game. I don't know, like the Star Citizen is a 13-year-old game. So I think it's a long time coming, but this will be a continuous thing. It's part of live operations, right? When we talk about live ops in video gaming, you have these things because players will be players. We're going to exploit. We're going to find ways to min-max. We're going to find ways to expedite our time in the game for the biggest yield, biggest ROI, return on investment. I think that's both something that we celebrate as a gaming community, but it can also, there's a dark side to it, right? So you need to have a way to handle it. All right, let's move on. I said there's like 15. We're at 9. I have 11. So let's go on to the next one. Long-term persistence build, right? Eventually patches won't require a database reset. So what they're working on is serialized data migration, component versioning, forward compatibility, and reducing LTP dependency, right? Their goal is to keep one evolving database. Here is my big idea or my big prediction. They could avoid a 1.0 full wipe if they get this right. Right. I think if they get it right now and they do their surgical fixing of exploits and inventory and economy issues, I think if they do it right, we could have a softer reset when 1.0 launches, right? Like this is foundational for like a real MMO persistence. And obviously offers for fewer wipes. So I think kind of on the front end, if they're able to attack and minimize the impacts of exploiters and economy, issues, then downstream, I think the wipes will be less relevant or more insignificant, less significant. I don't know. All right, let's move on. So this was brought up. I personally don't play in virtual reality. I don't. I've tried it once or twice, and it's just a lot of getting the gear ready. It's a lot of things that are kind of just, it's not perfected yet, so it's just wonky enough to log in, and just, things are kind of distorted. One of my officers in supervision talked about kind of this hazing effect with text. So if you have map markers and people's names on your user interface, there's like one for the left eye and one for the right eye, and it doesn't like blend perfectly. So you get this halo, or you get this like a stroke effect. Stroke being the Photoshop term, not or the photo editing term, not like you're dying from a stroke. Anyways, so like things like that. So they've got to kind of square that piece away before I think somebody like myself who might dabble in virtual reality really gets into it. All right. So to summarize, um, it's built using OpenXR, passion project that succeeded, released experimentally, not a major initiative. VR works because of long-term engine decisions. So those are like the bullet points that I pulled out of it. I don't really play, again, I don't have a lot of like say or response to virtual reality because I don't play in it. But I do think that this shows, like they said about the long-term engine decisions, I do think that this shows engine maturity and flexibility, like being able to create a foundation where you're able to add to and pivot and kind of try new things. I think that's super important. As a senior product manager, which is a developer, right? It's like synonymous with the gaming industry. You have to do that. You have to create two-door systems, right? So it's not just like you open the door, go through it, and there's no turning back, right? You create two-door systems where you're able to kind of go back and forth and change things up and move around, right? This also boosts immersion for a niche group, and I think that's fine. I think it's fine. When we talk about the virtual reality community, like it is niche, but they are super diehard, dedicated members of our community, right? Like it's very much needed, and I think very appreciated. And again, I like that flexibility. Like I said, there will be times when I just want to get immersed on like a planet, right? Okay. And then I think this might be like, again, Sulyce's second most important thing that came out. Again, not like Beyond the Verse or not what I think, what matters most to the community, but for Sulyce, the gamer, the battle cruiser was confirmed. Now it's going to be the last concept ship. So it is real and it is coming, the battle cruiser. Here's the summary. So traditional manufacturer, likely around Invictus, right? A battle cruiser, that kind of makes sense. ILW, right? May. It's going to be extremely large, intended to be the final concept cell, and there's no new concepts planned for 2026 through 2027. Okay. All right, let's take a step back. Forget about the battle cruiser. Let's focus more on the last concept ship. This signals a shift away from concept funding and towards delivery. I'm going to let that kind of sink in. Truly take a step back and think about what I just said. There are no more concept ships after the battle cruiser. That has been crowdfunding. That has been the way we have given our hard-earned disposable income to Star Citizen and CIG. It's these concept ships, right? A lot of individuals, had the Idris right before it came out. Well, that front loading of funds has helped development. And so the battle cruiser is going to be the last, I can't wait until that comes out. Now there is a line of ships that I can't wait until they come out. Right? There's a line of ships. But what I mean is there's not going to be this massive, hey, this is going to be coming, get excited. In 5 years, there's going to be no more of that. And I think that is super huge. I think that is something that we should absolutely focus on and let that drive some of our thought process going into like the rest of this year. If they're changing that funding strategy, I guess the next question now becomes, how is Star Citizen, or what is Star Citizen's plan to monetize? It still could be ship sales. Like that's not going to go away. They're still going to announce like, hey, here's the RSI Hermes, go pay for it. Like there's still going to be ship sales, but there's not going to be the front loading of let me pay money to fund you to build that ship you promised. It's now going to be the devs are building it, hoping that it's going to sell. They're going to put it out there and they're going to see if it sells. I think we're ending this segment on things are maturing. Star Citizen is growing up. And again, I don't mean that in any kind of insulting way, but the tech, the engine, the way that the marketing and developer teams are thinking through things, it's all becoming more of a mature studio. And I think we should celebrate that. Cool story. Let's get into the monthly report. Now this, I'm going to go a little bit, just a little bit faster. I pulled out my top 10 items that came from the Star Citizen monthly report. Again, I encourage you to go in and read it for yourself. It's somewhat of a quick read. But let's just go through this real quick. So number one, dynamic server meshing progress. We already talked about that. CIG is actively transitioning from static meshing toward a quasi DSM and eventually full dynamic server meshing with new systems to manage server life cycles more intelligently. All right. This is foundational tech for the true massive multiplayer gameplay. There's going to be bigger battles and more players per area and fewer server crashes, knock on wood. Everything long term depends on this technology. And we did already talk about this in the last segment. All right, so major NPC combat and AI fixes. Just overall, NPCs were fixed so they no longer randomly disengage, freeze in fear, fail to shoot, or aim through walls. Combat logic, burst fire behavior, and visibility tracking were all improved. This basically means better AI. I mean, when it's all said and done, it's better AI, right? It's more immersive. The missions are more immersive. Combat is harder and more engaging. And there's few and I've truly noticed this. There's fewer broken encounters, in my opinion, right? This directly improves everyday gameplay for me. So, to this day, I love mercenary missions. I love going to bunkers and going in there and just cleaning the floor. I love the delivery missions that take you to the bunkers, right? Because it's kind of all encompassing. And I think it has gotten significantly better. All right. CIG reviewed and upgraded their ground rendering system, improving fog, lighting, shadows, and atmospheric effects with major performance optimizations. So planets and ground combat look better. It feels better, runs smoother. This helps. I'm going to go back with immersion, kind of like with my last talking point. It helps with immersion. It just helps build that world and that experience for us as we play through Star Citizen, right? It has also helped a little bit with frame rate. I don't know. Have y'all felt that way? Let me know in the comment section. But I feel like those people that were getting single digit frames per second are now seeing double, and I think some people that were getting the 20 frame rate are now seeing like 30 to 40. I'm just curious what your FPS experience is. Mine, I'm living normally around 30 to 40 FPS, and that's like in Orson. But I think the main point is like you're going to a bunker, and as you're leaving your ship and you're going to the entrance, and it's raining or there's fog, like it's less taxing. It feels like it's less taxing on my system. Okay, there were 5. So let's talk ships. There are 5 secret ships that are in active development. The Hammerhead is gold standard complete. So maybe that comes to us in Invictus launch week or maybe even sooner. But I can't wait. The Hammerhead was always my role-playing ship. Now, I love me the Perseus. I love me the Polaris. I love me some of these larger ships. But the Hammerhead is like the home for me when it comes to like a battle cruiser. I know it's not a cruiser, guys. I know. It's a Corvette. But I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it and like be back in my Hammerhead I've called Erebus Nyx. So if you're familiar with mythology and gods, Erebus Nyx, that's basically the god of dark and the goddess of night. So Dark Knight, Erebus Nyx. Cool. Let's see here. The whole B. The whole B is in level of detail 0. So it's coming through. It's right around the corner as well. The Kraken is nearing major reviews. We'll talk about that here in a couple of seconds. But the Kraken is nearing major reviews. Drake Ironclad is progressing rapidly. And look, like ships drive hype, We just talked about it. Ships drive hype. It drives funding. It really kind of pushes Star Citizen forward. And this currently signals a strong pipeline for 2026. It gives us hope as a community that hopefully right around the corner is that ship that you've been waiting for. But the 5 secret ships, okay, that's interesting. Some of us will react and say, where are my other ships that I've paid for and been waiting on for years? But this is still cool. 5 secret ships. Like if it's anything like the RSI Hermes, which is a phenomenal cargo hauler, I'm good with that. So let's talk Drake Kraken. It's approaching its first major gate review, with concept refinements underway to modernize older designs. So the Kraken. The Kraken is one of the most sought after and anticipated capital ships. And this is the closest to real production it has ever been. Right. And I don't know if they're being more transparent about it, but it seems like it's right around the corner. And I don't know. I don't know if it's like just the base Kraken or if it's also the privateer. I think hopefully they're able to do both at the same time. But the Kraken privateer, it requires the merchant gameplay. It requires like stores because your Dragonfly Bay that's in the base Kraken is replaced with a store area, a marketplace setup. And so they're going to have to figure that piece out. So if I were to just take a gander, if I were to just predict, I think it's just the base Kraken, and then we'll wait longer for the actual privateer to come out as well. All right, let's go quickly. New industrial collection and salvage missions. This deepens the industrial gameplay ecosystem and makes non-combat careers more viable and interconnected. It last night for Org Night, while we were doing all the missions, I was getting my MISC. Good Lord, I was getting my MISC prospector like upgraded and ready to go for whenever things drop. So I think there is this. Like, I kind of like how they focus on cargo hauling one patch and then it switches to industrial, then maybe FPS. Like, I kind of like the tempo of it going back and forth, quite honestly. They talked about the Siege of Orison revival, right? They talked about the design revamping, and they talked about it being instanced. And so again, not to rehash that, but this represents like CIG's push toward structured and repeatable PvE content. That can't be a bad thing, in my opinion. All right, let's move on. Advanced creature AI and pathfinding. So the Valakar and the voxel grid. Large creatures now navigate planetary terrain and underground spaces better with improved pathfinding via a 3D voxel grid. All right, so this enables more believable encounters. The wildlife actually has a sense of purpose, and it looks more cohesive. It also provides for more dynamic, like explorative gameplay. Speaking of exploration, real quick, last night's Org Night, I noticed that in some of the planets, like most of Stanton, Pyro 4, in the F2 map, so your star map, it has, in the description, it has the list of all the resources that are found planet side and around the area. That's cool. At the same time, pull that shit back. Make that part of exploration. Make it completely blank until you or an org member goes and scans that planet. Right? I'm kind of thinking, not to bring up Starfield, I'm so sorry. But in Starfield, when you go to a planet, you hold down R to like scan the planet and then you learn its resources. It could be something like that. When you go planet side and you have a scanner and you have to actually scan the plants and the wildlife to kind of know that it's there. But I think that's kind of an interesting. I discovered it last night. It might have been there for years. I don't know. But I thought like I'm in a tangent, but I can because it's my podcast. I think that is kind of a tease into what we can expect for exploration. Hopefully. All right, moving on. Community support and 2026 engagement push. Right, so the community team expanded guides, updated onboarding, published event calendars, launched Bar Citizen World Tour, supported Daymar Rally. Look, you can't really have a successful MMO without a successful community. right? Keeps players engaged, informed, invested, right? A better community creates a more invested player base. Yeah, especially during a 13-year development cycle. All right, maybe kind of low hanging fruit, but I wanted to pull out like 10 highlights. The low hanging fruit, I think, new voice pack and character performance capture. So a new voice pack is coming in Alpha 4.7 with returning character James Harriman and fresh performance capture shoots planned. So why this matters, again, engagement, immersion. It makes walking around areas and engaging with NPCs more believable, right? Better storytelling equals better immersion. So, cool. Those were our two main segments, and they overlapped a lot. So if you pick one over the other, I would watch the 2-hour video with Benoit, because a lot of what he discussed with Jared was found in the monthly report, right? But just like in every other podcast, I show you all the landing page of something, and then I show you all the Spectrum post to kind of supplement. I think you've got to look at it the same way. I think you watch the 2-hour video with Benoit, and then you go to the monthly report as supplemental, so you can kind of get context. But if you only have an hour to spend, there's a great podcast that you've already found and are listening to. All right, enough of my face. You can now see my screen share. Let's look at February in the verse. So we're going to continue through the Clean the Air event. Upcoming, we got the Core More 2956. You have a free fly, right? You're going to have a referral reward time as well. But we will also have the Red Festival. So Red Festival 2956, and I think we're the Year of the Rat. Yeah, Year of the Rat. So Year of the Rat, that means like your red card that you can put on your shelving system. Like I don't know if it was subscriber flare, or maybe it was just a store item, but you can buy a card display, and as you get these cards, you can hang them, you can place them on this display. So it's actually really pretty cool. But it's the Year of the Rat. And then, of course, we're going to have a monthly store bundle. You can kind of see the preview of what it's going to be. Valentine's Day or Core More themed. You got this Who's That Spaceship? We've already kind of talked about that. We know that's the Argo salvaging ship, so the Argo Mole, but it's going to be the salvaging version of the Mole. Don't know what it is or what it's going to be called. We have the Enter Atmosphere 2956. That is, let me just read it real quick because I actually don't know. On February 21st, full day event for ship racing, dog fighting, showcases, meet and greets, and time together. So maybe a kind of a bar citizen. Don't really know why that gets its own. Anyways, moving on to the actual Bar Citizen World Tour, where you can also click on and see, like here, click out the full details where you can see where they are going to go. So February is going to be a fun month. Nothing's new. I don't think anything's new. Every February is Core More. Every February is the Lunar New Year or the Red Festival event. So I don't think anything is like totally groundbreaking. But what is groundbreaking? The February subscriber promotions, and y'all, I had a fun time with this. It's actually the YouTube thumbnail. So if you've clicked on this in YouTube or in Spotify, you've already seen it. But I had some fun with this where I was like, oh my God, they just made like a love making bed for the subscriber promotions. I even said like in my announcement, like the community is going to have a field day with this. And I did. I did. I took a photo of me and asked AI to superimpose me on the bed. And so there you go. So I am laying on this bed in a seductive manner. My wife was very confused when I sent it to her. as you can possibly imagine. So listen, hanger flare and hanger items. I'm seeing like hanger flare as like the introduction. Here, let's do this because I think this is important. When I go through and I see hanger flare, I don't think of it as going in my hanger. I think of it as a preview of what can go into base building. So why put a bed inside of your hangar? Like, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So when I see like a bed and a couch for the February subscriber promotions, initially you might think, why the hell would I put this inside of my hangar? And you might not. I don't put a bunch of crap in my hangar because it just looks weird and it breaks my immersion when I come in from a high velocity, full contact mission and I see a lovemaking bed, by my kiosk. Like, it just kills my immersion. So I think that's a way we need to look at this. Like, think of it as a preview to what base building can look like. Now on the other side of that is a humorous, like, imagine walking around your org base and you peek in someone's room and they've got like a lovemaking bed and it's this Valentine's Day setup. So, you do you decorate how you want to be, designed or decorative. Let's go. Pink heart lamp. So for the Centurion level, you get this pink heart lamp. It's one, and there's a reason why I'm telling you it's one. So it's one pink heart lamp, and then for Imperador, you get this nightstand. Again, it's one nightstand. Okay, and then if you want to buy the collection out, this is a pretty full, encompassing subscriber package. So you get the bed. You get 4 pillows. So here's a heart pillow, here's a heart pillow, here's a heart pillow, and here's a heart pillow. You get 2 nightstands. You get the couch. You get the 2 lights, right? The 2 lamps that come with the Centurion. And you get this poster in the back. So for $35 or $36, you get quite a significant amount of items. Let's talk prices. And my store page is not loading. That is fantastic. Makes me super happy. If I'm not mistaken, I'm doing this off of memory now at this point. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. All right. So again, $36.75 is for the entire set that we just discussed. The Centurion pink lamp is $5. The Imperador Carmilla nightstand is $6. So there you go. There's your cost structure. Okay. I'm ready for a giveaway. I'm ready to get through giving away the RSI Hermes. So again, thank you to CIG for sponsoring and providing this giveaway. So I do want to shout them out. Thank you as always. But let's give it back to the community now. I'm really excited to do this. One of my favorite things to do is to give things away. So here we go. Let me go ahead and start kind of breaking some of this down. I'm going to share my screen for those of you on video because I love showing you the way shit is made. Because I don't want any question as my fairness and how I do this. So I've hidden columns Bravo, Delta, Echo, and Foxtrot that are administrative. So you'll see Alpha, Charlie, Golf. They're administrative, and I don't want to dox anybody. So those are the only things that I've done so far. So for column Alpha, I'm going to do random, right? Call that random. And now I'm going to assign a random number to every single cell moving down. A couple of things I have to do here. Everything has a number now, but now I need to paste it as a text. So now those are static. Now I can manipulate the form without it changing those numbers. So here we go. We're going to go largest to smallest. And the winner is Inferno. Inferno 759 over at Twitter has won. So congratulations, Inferno. You are the winner of the RSI Hermes and Star Citizen digital goodie pack. So again, congratulations. I'm going to get these engagement questions sent over to CIG. Because again, I think these are very fun and engaging insights into the community. So thank you so much. Again, Inferno 759, congratulations as always. All right, let's wrap things up with the show notes from last year. Not show notes, the poll in the comment section, just quickly. So episode 136, if you could recruit one role into your org for 4-6 and left ski, what would it be? 66.7% stayed combat pilot. We need more combat pilots. 22.2% say hauler logistics, and 11.1% say engineer and repair. Let's go to the comment section. There's only 2 for this week. Remember, email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. Respond to our comment section and our poll over on Spotify, and we will do our best. I will do my best to read and try to discuss everything that's brought up. All right. Listener Rimkobly, all right, I don't know how to say your name. Says, did you work for Blizzard? No. So we talked last week about a couple of things. We talked last week about like layoffs and my experience with the Amazon Game Studios and the gaming industry. And no, I did not work for Blizzard. I have not. I currently am a senior product manager for Amazon, specifically Amazon Business. I own pricing across all categories. So that's super exciting, kind of boring when you're talking on a gaming podcast. But historically, preceding this role, I did do work with Amazon Game Studios in kind of the New World era. So we worked on New World, Lost Ark, etc. Moving on to Steelwicker Beast writes, glad you made it to Seattle and back safely. Pretty scary that your plane's engine failed. Yep, on the tarmac, given what happened here in Louisville with UPS MD-11 flight 2976 3 months ago. To the day I'm writing this, yeah. It was that UPS plane that took off and immediately crashed, for those of you who don't know. I'm enjoying the Hermes a lot, but I don't think I can justify $200 for it myself when the Argo Salvager is right around the corner. If I win it, then I'll be very happy. But if I don't win it, then I'll buy the $10 CCU from the raft and then buy back my pack with the raft and CSV. Leave it to Steelwicker to have this well thought out, complicated way of getting his ships through the CCU chain game. That is, I've never been able to do that. Like I get the concepts, but I do not have the patience to look a year in advance and move my ships around to make sure that I'm able to put funds towards something. So props to you, Steelwicker Beast. I love you, my friend. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. Thank y'all for everything. Thank y'all for being present and engaging in the giveaway. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this this summarization podcast. Because I didn't go through like line by line and word for word, but hopefully my recaps made sense and maybe it pulled out the same things that matter to you as well. I would love to hear your comments if this was what you highlighted and what you thought were the biggest takeaways from both Star Citizen Live and the Star Citizen Monthly Report. All right, if you want to know more about who we are and what we do and the in-game organization, you can visit us at our websites, beyondtheversehq.com or soulprovision.com. You can email us again at contact@beyondtheversehq.com for questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts. We're going to read through them if they're appropriate. Blast Resort, I'm thinking about you. We do have our philanthropy going on in 2026 where we're raising funds through Extra Life for children's hospitals. So if you feel so called and compelled to contribute, that's beyondtheversehq.com/give. And I think that's it. I usually have like a list of notes like, hey, here's your outro. And I don't have it this time. So y'all, I hope this finds you well. Safe travels as you traverse Beyond the Verse. Take care, everybody.